Imagine being newly married, deeply in love, but every time you so much as hold hands, your mother-in-law is sitting 3 feet away knitting, your father is loudly slurping tea, and your little nephew is asking if babies are made from mango seeds. Privacy? A luxury. Yet for most of human history, couples didn't get their own apartments, fancy hotel rooms, or even doors that locked. They lived under one roof with grandparents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and sometimes half the village. And still, somehow they found ways to be intimate. The question is, how? For centuries, the concept of a private couple's space was almost non-existent. In medieval Europe, peasant families often lived in one-room cottages called hall houses, where everyone slept in the same main room. Children, parents, livestock. Yes, the cow in the corner might be chewing cud, while a couple tried to share a romantic moment under a wool blanket. Privacy was about as rare as fresh soap in February. In Victorian England, things were no less crowded for working-class families. The poor lived in cramped tenements, entire households in 1 or 2 rooms. Couples had to get creative. A thin curtain, a strategically hung sheet, or waiting until everyone was asleep was often their only option. People developed what historians cheekily call the code of the blanket. When the blanket went over the head, you didn't ask questions. Meanwhile, in ancient Rome, even wealthy households weren't exactly private. The Roman domus often had rooms opening directly into public courtyards, and servants were everywhere. Upper-class couples sometimes retreated to their cubicula, small bedrooms, during midday siestas, using the excuse of rest, when in fact they were indulging in something far more entertaining. In rural India, China, and many parts of Africa well into the 20th century, joint family systems were the norm. A newly married couple often shared sleeping space with siblings or cousins. Intimacy had to be planned with military precision. Couples learned to communicate through subtle cues, an extra glance, a small gesture. That meant, meet me by the granary when everyone's gone to the fields. For some cultures, there were actually socially accepted time windows for intimacy. Among the Inuit, winter meant long, dark months stuck indoors, and families often shared a single large igloo. Couples would quietly coordinate moments under shared bedding, muffling sounds beneath furs. The sound of howling wind outside was their ally. In medieval Japan, paper-thin shoji walls separated rooms. Privacy was almost entirely auditory rather than visual, meaning if you could keep quiet, you could keep your secret. Couples became masters of subtlety. Intimacy often happened in the dead of night, when the rest of the household was sleeping, the only witnesses being the moon and the flicker of an oil lamp. But perhaps the most ingenious solutions came from nomadic tribes. In Mongolian yurts, there was no bedroom. The only private space was sometimes behind stacked supplies or inside a smaller tent pitched within the main tent. Couples might even volunteer to fetch water or firewood, tasks that suspiciously took much longer than necessary. And yet, despite all the awkwardness, these arrangements served a purpose. In many societies, marriage wasn't just about romance. It was a communal alliance where family life was shared and resources pooled. Personal privacy wasn't considered a right. It was a luxury. Love had to adapt to the presence of grandparents snoring, children coughing, and roosters crowing before dawn. Fast forward to the early 1900s. The Industrial Revolution and urban migration slowly brought the concept of nuclear families and separate bedrooms to the middle class. But even then, in many parts of the world, people continued to live multi-generationally. In post-war Europe, housing shortages meant newlyweds often moved in with parents. And yes, the cycle of creative intimacy continued. If you think about it, these couples became experts in subtle romance. Every shared glance across a crowded table, every brief touch while passing in the hallway, every whispered word in the dark carried an intensity that modern couples, who can text each other from across the couch, might not fully appreciate. Intimacy was earned, not assumed. In some cases, these constraints even strengthened relationships. The need to protect private moments created a secret world just for the two of them, hidden in plain sight. And when those moments came, they were all the more treasured for their rarity. Today, in much of the world, we have walls, doors, locks, and even hotels for getaways. But there are still millions living in multi-generational homes where the old rules apply. Be discreet, be resourceful, and never underestimate the value of a really thick blanket. So, next time you're enjoying a quiet evening alone with your partner, remember, you're living in the golden age of privacy. No goats in the corner, no siblings pretending to sleep, no paper-thin walls. If you found this glimpse into the surprisingly resourceful love lives of the past fascinating, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who still lives with their in-laws, and subscribe for more strange, hidden, and sometimes awkward stories from history. Because romance has always found a way, even when the whole family was watching.